All right, so this is Savage Songs. I was talking to Cody and Marcus about doing something, the kind of thing I do with the Refuge, with the shop. I'm really grateful that these guys are open now. And so they entertained the idea of doing this. So I'm grateful to you guys for being here for it. And we were talking about what kind of poetry thing would be appropriate for a cigar lounge. So we went with Macho Men. We toyed with Randy Savage themes. Discussion flew about, but we ended up with Savage songs. So the Savage there, you can think of Randy Savage, that'll be fine. But the theme that's running through is not savagery so much as it is masculinity in various forms. We'll start with brotherhood, and we'll move through warlike, through meditative, but that binding theme is masculinity and manliness. I was talking to someone just before starting this about poetry and poetry and its place in the lives of men. I think that all of us are convinced of the need to take dominion of God's creation. And one of the ways we do that is with words. You don't have to be a poet, capital P, to take that sort of dominion, but you do need to live and speak poetically. Writing and listening to poetry is a great way to sharpen that. But whether you are a poet or not, to appreciate and develop within yourself the ability to choose the right word for the right moment, to choose the word that resonates, that causes effect, that doesn't just think about being right or wrong, doesn't just think about truth, but thinks about truth, beauty, and goodness, always together. That's what's motivating what I'm doing tonight. I'm wearing two microphones because Daniel Fukushan is here tonight, and he is publishing a textbook of mine and an anthology coming soon on the rhetoric of poetry. So if you want to learn how to be a poet, you can buy that book, but you should certainly add the anthology to your family library. So the theme of the anthology is poems that I think Christians should know. And it's 500 poems maybe? It's huge. It's not canon, it's Roman Roads, these boys right here. But Canon does publish one of my collections, so you can buy this over at the Sword and Shovel. I'll be reading from both of these collections. And there's another one in the chamber, which I'm hoping to be published soon, besides the didactic, pedagogical stuff I'm doing with Roman Roads. All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to start with some poems about conviviality and brotherhood. The first one is called Ave atque vale, or I meet a friend after work. Some of these, by the way, will be quite short. Some will be a little longer. This one is one of the short and sweet ones. Hail, fellow, most well met. I slap thee on the back and shoulder. Here's ale bowls for thee to wet thy throat and whistle before you get older. Long hast labored and hast sweat. Drink thou this beer, it gets no colder. Then get thee hence, all free from debt, thy kids to kiss, thy wife to hold her. And the next one I'm going to read is called Theobroma. It's the name of a beer. It means food of the gods. And this one is a little more melancholy for me because I wrote it about drinking a beer with a friend who was going through a very difficult divorce. It's called Theobroma, a beer review. Remarkable was what you pronounced, which seemed to go without saying, given that you'd remarked upon it. Still, something had to be said. The way the light shone through the cloudy deep orange of the thing, the crisp bubbly of the day, how well it matched the bright. Still something more had to be said of the fresh face it gave to age, how your job seemed manageable and your spirit was content in its dispensations. Remarkable, you said, and I poured another. And this will open up the last of the themes through the lens of brotherhood, the last of the themes. There will be violence in this in this presentation of poems. This one is called God of Storms, continuing with brotherhood. From this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered, which is from the St. Crispin's Day speech that we were talking about earlier. Sing into storms, bullets like hail, arrows and sheets like sleet, plink and thud. We steel ourselves for shield and mud. Sing as you storm. Fell is the foe, but sing as you go. Crash the gates, take the high place. Fell the foe with dreadful grace. Sing up a storm, a tavern song of bonhomie, our manhoods long, as were our deeds. Remember when I died for thee. Kind of reinforcing that theme that I would like all men to be poets. This is a poet about anyone, someone like you, writing the greatest sonnet ever written. And it's called The Greatest Sonnet Ever Written. The greatest sonnet ever written was penned in town, just down the road, out past the Oaks, in regular America, where wend 10 million roads, where fizz a billion cokes. It happened accidentally, nearly shocked the poet, scared his kids, roused his wife. The man had gone into his shed, then locked the door to consider how he loved his life. The poet thought of all the things to write. He loved his wife, his dog, his garden plot. He liked his job, his kids were a delight. He wrote about it all, and wrote a lot. A haiku, a limerick, 500 villanelle, and the single greatest sonnet that any man could tell. This is not that sonnet, as you've guessed, but his face was shining as he left that shed, and his family was blessed. The fall of the poet. The poet's office is not to fork the lightning itself, but rather to point out that someone had lived whose deeds were bright, that some flame whose burn was right had raved. The poet is also responsible to say that lightning is a fork, such as a cook or devil might handle, or that lightning is a bolt from a crossbow. To the poet finally falls, suddenly from heaven, to suggest that lightning is a javelin. Part of the inspiration for this is actually that the word in Spanish for javelin was taken from the Arabic word for lightning. This is technically probably the poem I am proudest of. I wrote it after I read a book that some Anglican had written about beauty. It's called Surface Beauty, or The Analogy of Being. And I'll read the bit in Latin, but the bit in Latin, the epigraph, quotes scripture. It says, there is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. The stars, one star differs from another in glory. Alia claritas solis, alia claritas lunae, et alia claritas stellarum. Stella enim a steli differet in claritate. It's not a drop dripped deep in each, nor yet a gem set there with care. It's in the air, everywhere, tinted on skins, splashed and slathered. It's visible to every eye. It shines out light, sparkless at dark, goes forth sourceless, but at angels every angle, ubiquitous, too thick to flicker, expressed as yes, as God's own law of entity, the Lord's own word of being to being, shining as shook. This next poem is a good one to smoke to. It's called Freedom in Form. And I always think of Jason Farley when I read this. Some of you know Jason, he published my first collection. He says this one is his favorite. It's not my favorite. And so, of course, as a poet, I find a way to have even that hurt my feelings. But this is his favorite poem, so I think fondly of him when I read it. And I do like this poem. Freedom in Form. In those days of sweater vests, when men wore hats and children ties with the top buttons cinched. In those days without tennis shoes except for exercise. In those days of yes ma'am and no man and ma'am and get up when she walks in. In those days of closed air. In that ancient day of rules at work, at home, at play. In those days of always deference, when life was shorter and tighter, in those days a man could light his pipe, or not, as he wished. This one is called Ode to a Cucumber. Consisting in slick skin and fleshy waters, hydrodynamic, yet still no longer alive, he awaits the knife, the life my blade brings. Together we shall make a salad of slaughters. Tomatoes bleed, onions no longer strive, and the cucumber rises on vinegared wings. O cucumber, live again in my daughters, and make your waters my sons to revive. O crown with salad days our queens and kings. You can make a warlike poem even about vegetables. All right, this is a slightly longer one. I posted this on my Substack today as an appetizer, so some of you may have, or you might have encountered it in a previous collection of mine. It is a military history of sorts. It recounts a naval raid by the British on the Italian port city of Taranto. It was studied by the Japanese when they were planning Pearl Harbor because it was such a successful torpedo plane attack. And it sank 6 battleships and many other smaller ships in the harbor of Taranto. So of course, given that it's a military history, the poem is called Why Men Should Not Wear Skimpy Bathing Suits. Everyone likes to talk about Il Duce, how Italy had places to go. But his generals wore turkey feathers and Gucci and declined to face a tough foe. It's difficult when picking a fight with nations to south and to north. If your soldiers wear loafers so light, they min-step when sallying forth. I realize it's been covered before. I know it's a well-worn theme, how Italia wore the dress of a whore, which when tugged at, ripped at the seam. Her martial men have been flogged. Their reputation now has a stench. The bright shield of Priam's been fogged. Why? They've even been compared to the French. What lots of people don't know, what's evaded the average reader, her armed forces weren't all leavened dough. There was one corps made proud its leader. In Africa at night, the tankers would run full tilt right into the trees. On patrol, the pilots would look at the sun to find Spitfires coming in threes. But of one thing Papa and Mama were proud while chewing their gnocchi and gravy. There was a force fascist that yet was unbowed, the illustrious Italian Navy. British tars, who were named for the combative lime, have a fine reputation for ruling the sea. But Il Duce, that fiend with his force maritime, would pick off their convoys and spit in their tea. The Brits had been left solitaire in the Med, quite suddenly, and yes, 'twas a shock. The French fleet, once allied, went Vichy instead, leaving Limey alone on the rock. The Admiralty put all their heads close together, deciding to think of a plot that, God willing, that is, and the weather, would pull them right out of this spot. Toujours, toujours, toujours l'audace, said they with no flim-flummery. If we don't succeed, it will be our arse, plus we'll lose Montgomery's army. 6 Latin warships made Taranto their port when Britain turned there to strike. Some Saxons would look on Valhalla's bright court, some Romans would see what Elysium was like. As far as raids go, this one was quite neat, with 10 different task forces sailing around. Some came from Malta, some straight from Crete, and this crisscrossing did the Italians confound. Then that great carrier, illustrious by name, launched all her swordfish loaded for bear, and to the Italians' ne'er-dying shame, those 24 biplanes bearded them in their lair. Fascist inventory listed, full battleships 6, which made the Med Mare Nostrum. But when the English flyers were done with their tricks, the Italians had all Mare Lostum. The lesson we've learned from this short naval history, that the men of some nations wear Speedos, but others leave much more to mystery, and those nations have bigger torpedoes. I wrote that one a long time ago, and I still enjoy it very much.
We could tell.
Yeah, good. As long as I hear like a little bit of laughter when I say torpedoes, I'm good. All right. Please don't have to relight this. That would be such a faux pas. I might have to. Well, this is a poem about Alfred the Great, which I actually wrote after reading Ben Merkel's book on King Alfred, called The White Horse King. So it's dedicated to Ben. It's called The Cross King. And it kind of plays on this theme of twos, which thank you. I later asked Ben about, because I thought he was definitely purposely working all of these pairs of things into his narration. He was not, but I think it's really there, so it's here in the poem. All right. The Cross King. I am the king of twos. I broke both white horses. I split up my forces. My long ships have twice as much crew. I am the twain thane. I have built standing holds and a flying squadron bold, one book of dooms, one of hide counts ordained. I am two poles for a rood. Read the songs of our folk, sing the scrolls of Christ's yoke, with law speakers draw the blood feud. I am the king of twos. I'm the first and the last in slaughter walls blast, where spears pierce in Francisca's hue. I am the twain thane. In me shelp and shield are stout. In me the poet and priest call out, grace soothgood as our doom shall remain. I am two poles for a world, two poles for banners unfurled, two poles for battlement and fosse, two poles to cross. This poem is about either the Sabbath or the right to bear arms. It's called The Strongest Peoples of Earth Are the Free, or On the Longbow. Not till full metal jackets came around would this sort of firepower be matched. This was a peculiar fire, its verb to loose, a rain of wood and steel, and each drop from up high a full yard long. At a rate of what? 7, 8 a minute. Bolt-action rifles bettered that easily half a millennium later. Napoleon's columns could not stand up to the thin lines of the quickest army of his age. Those early sons of Welsh and Cornish villagers could manage only 4 shots a minute. Crossbowmen from Genoa were more precise, so Latin, but much slower also. One English shaft could punch halfway through a church door and popped like rain on a tin roof through the knights in their full metal jackets. Ben Franklin was a wise man, early to bed. But perhaps his most immortal insight was to say how much earlier our war would have been won by an army of longbowmen. The French and Scots had a few, of course, but in England it was a national sport. For a couple of centuries, that made the difference. You can't just train that into a man in a few months. It's a lifelong endeavor. Wellington owed his victories to the playing fields of Eton, but Edward to Sunday afternoon contests. Practiced in pulling a 6-foot longbow. I mean, imagine the shoulders. Sport was the turning point of Western Europe, and by the time a law was made to practice every Sunday, it was too late. All good Englishmen need their day of rest, and the strongest peoples of earth are the free. This one's called Thunderhead, from the 40th chapter of Isaiah. There are some Latin phrases in here. Around the globe, the whole earth is one of them. Truly the people is grass is another. The rough place is plain, Isaiah 40 again. And finally it closes with, all the people is grass, and they take up feathers like eagles. They take up wings like eagles. Thunderhead. The air is crackling with heat. Universo orbe terrarum, you know what comes next. The air is fast and heavy and flattens up the grass. You know what comes next. All the grass, that single tree, billow down their boughs before the wind. You know what comes next. Gathered thunderheads grumble their crowded accumulations. Vere fenum est populus, you know what comes next. Break, Lord God, your mercies upon our heads. Crack the jar of heaven over our hard ground. Aspera in vias planas, we know what comes next. Cracked earth now loam, the blades of the people flown, we know what comes next. The fresh of our sky now birds, a song of stems, a flight of shoots, we know what comes next. Look to that single tree, now cracked, now struck, now eerie. Vere fenum est populus, assument penas sicut acilae. This one is called Curse of Womb. It's based on Hosea 9, and believe it or not, I wrote it before, just before, all the COVID stuff. It takes phrases from Hosea 9 and mixes it in with, well, the lives we live today. Our friends' necks are outstretched. Our neighbors plot against us. They have served their belly god of fire, coming down from killing their babies. They tip off policemen, kindly seize our children. Where is he? Thunder is his voice, but where is he? An abundance of horses. Their dust shall cover us. Our walls shake at the noise of horsemen, of chariots. I make thee desolate. He said that. Ephraim is smitten from the birth, from the womb, even from conception. Like a bird, our glory flies away. To Baal Peor, wanton rites, homicides to Moloch. We bring up our children, but he bereaves us. We bring forth our children, planted in pleasant places, to murders. Give us, Lord, what willst give? Miscarrying womb, dry breasts. Roots dried up, bear not fruit. We bring forth, he will slay, even fruit, beloved fruit of womb. Policemen kindly seize our children, voices heard in Ramah. Belly God consumes them because we climbed the heights, sacred trees, and played whore. Our friends' necks plot against us. We shall be wanderers among them, the nations, till he save, till he save, till he saves us. This one was a special request. It's a little longer. It's called Strange God. I figured since I was reading to a group of men, I should read a poem about circumcision. Unlike the Italy poem, this actually is not meant for comedic effect, but definitely this is a poem about circumcision. And it's based on the story of when Zipporah circumcises her man to save him from the Lord who seems to be trying to kill him. It's called Strange God. A strange God he seemed to her, definitely not from around here. Perhaps a local God, small, lightless, but obviously divine. Down from the hills he must have come, through the night, through the corrals the drivers used when they stopped at the inn. A god of stables or donkeys, the way he walked through the beasts to get to her husband. Striking how he'd walked up on them through the shadows and backhanded her husband so ferociously he was knocked to the ground. Striking how ferociously the god grinned, looked for a fight as her husband scrambled to his feet. Another laughing backhand to the face, another sprawl, and then a promise. I am going to kill you, Moses. And she believed and stood up. In later days, she'd wonder how she'd been so unafraid, how right it seemed to her that a god should try to kill the man of her devotion. Her Egyptian husband, who recently had found himself a homeless man. Her Egyptian husband who sacrificed his sheep to a forgotten shepherd lord, a priestless god of midwives and slaves. The god knew Moses' real name. This was the angry slave god. This was the grinning shepherd god, hungry and coming to claim his own. Thermutis's unready Egyptian son. Distantly, she understood why the Egyptians feared and hated the shepherd kings, their gods of storm. This god had chosen her husband, her man, and her man was none of what the god needed. This God had chosen the father of her sons, and this was the God who killed firstborns, who grudged like a mountain clan chief. Moses had never been a slave. Moses was learning to be a shepherd. What on earth was he to this God but a bit of blood, congealed, unlived? What bound her man to the God but words, a lineage unconsecrated, a few fiery words? Again her husband rose to fight. Again the God laughed and struck him down. Only babble poured from the mouth of Moses, only blood and slobber. She was unafraid. She ran inside and fetched Gershom from his basket. Again the God was striking, was laughing. Kneeling at shadowed feet divine, she set the basket before now her God. Gershom slept as she hoisted the child Godward so he'd turn and look. Her man stayed down. Unwrapping her son, she drew the flap of skin away. She struck the flint. Her son screamed. Her husband babbled. She gazed up, heard none of it. The God no longer laughed. He turned. Looking to sobbing Moses, she touched the bloody skin to his feet to soothe. A husband of blood thou art to me. She realized as she said the words that she'd taken an oath. Well, an intense one. We'll take a puff or two before reading the next one. The next couple are also scriptural. This one is about a famous judge who set fields on fire with foxes and avenged his wife's death. It's called Holy Fool. It has two parts. The first is called Fire and Air. Holy fool, fire and air. Only because you dared to plow with my unmilked, unbred cow did your sticky, devouring minds my bee-lion riddle unwind. 300 foxes' tails I tie, and just as many fires fly. They lick out in tongue-driven craze, stand still there and watch the blaze. Now you've burnt my wife along with her sire. I'll kill every man who was at that fire. I strike hip and thigh until no man is left, and go down to Edom to dwell in the cleft. Earth and water. Leave me down here all alone, or I'll speak in dreadful donkey's bone. To hear the judge they had to die, heaps on heaps all piled high. My words are done. I cast from my hand the jaw for which I named this land. And now in this place of slaughter and sword, I long to have some water, Lord. He gouges the cleft and the hollow is wet. He judges 20 years. Oh, he judges 20 years. And this one is called Discomfited, or the Rod of God, and it's from Exodus 17. Is the Lord among us or not? Came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. With Yahweh's staff in hand, the holy men ascend to watch atop the hill till battle's end. Joshua bears his blade below. High above, Moses lifts the great rod of God in his own arms. The sword is the Lord's. Spears bite and slingshots harm. In the promised land, Yahweh decides who buys the farm. As long as Moses raises hands, the shield wall of Israel prevails. If he sags, more Israelite widows wail. Moses is old, his arms fail. The Lord has sworn the Lord. Hold him up, Aaron. Heave him high, Hur. The bodies mount up, strown for the hawks. Floating in spiral the gory deadlock. Make Moses to rest. Sit him upon the rock. His hands are steady to the going down of the sun. Joshua discomfits with the edge of the sword. Write this in the book and tell it to Joshua's ears. Amalek will not be remembered by the time I'm done. These buzzards of the borderlands may raid and run, but from my wrath relentless, there's no flight under the sun. Moses tells Joshua, we're in for the duration, locked in arms for generations. Jehovah Nissi, the Lord has sworn the Lord will have war with Amalek from age to age. Is the Lord among us or not? Men at church. Your fathers did not do the work. Be jolly and be brave. You have a task you must not shirk. Be jolly and be brave. Happy shall you be that take and dash, take and dash, take and dash against the rock. Do not close your eyes. Be jolly, boys, and be brave. But why are we jolly? And for what brave? Jolly for what you go to, brave for what you shall come to. Give thanks, weigh anchor, strap your packs. Clean the spark plugs and turn the key. Yes, kick the tires and light the fires, my jolly brave boys. But why must we be jolly, and why brave? Jolly for the wars and brave enough to come home. Jolly for the assembly and brave for the watch. Merry for meeting and steady for standing. Do not close your eyes, you jolly brave boys. Sing another song and pass the ammunition. Praise the Lord and chamber another round, for it is better to be merry than to burn. Do not turn from us, jolly brave boys. Sing for us the songs of Zion. Cry Harry and St. George. But how can we let slip the dogs of St. George in a strange land? But be jolly, boys, and be brave. Blessed be the hour you cinch your belts. Happy the hefting of your glasses, and glad the gripping of your hammers. Your fathers would not do the work, but be jolly and be brave. Clear the decks for what we go to and what's to come. Happy shall you be that take and dash, take and dash, take and dash against the rock. Do not close your eyes. This one is, I think, the poem that I've gotten the most feedback from, the one I get most requested. And it compares us to barbecue. It's called God Eats. Stephen was delicious because he was beaten, tenderized by many stones. His forgiveness needed flesh, softened by killing blows. Sharper than any butcher's cleaver is the word of God, living and active, piercing to the division of joints and marrow. When finally pierced between soul and spirit, he was made to be a perfect meal. His God was a consuming fire who devoured all his apostles with delight and smelled the smoke of their burning as a sweet aroma. Only their outsides were charred as on a grill or cast iron. Their flesh was rare and easily cut. Andrew and Peter were hung upside down like pheasants, left to age until perfect. This is not to everyone's taste, but monks and martyrs recommend it. Paul was a work of art, stricken, smitten, and afflicted, tenderized several times. On one single trip, he was marinated, slow cooked, and injected with a fiery seasoning designed to amaze. Dry-aged then for 2 years, he was finally drained and offered up quietly without much to do, just as the sophisticates like it. This is an excellent way to prepare an older animal. Only to a privileged few does it fall to be cooked over direct flame. Most of us, like Paul, are allowed to get old, too old, or perhaps it is simply a divine preference for brisket. For your sake, we are cooked all the day long in a little wine, which will finally break down the tougher-habited sinews. It's been a long time coming, but soon the great fork of God will make your flesh to fall tenderly off your bones. The proving's past, the tasting's done, and you served up perfect. I know that's a favorite of yours. All right.
When did you write that?
When?
Yeah.
Oh, probably, I'd say exactly 10 years ago. Yeah. It, like a lot of things I've done, it seems I've found a second voice in that canon book. So I get people, because of this book, just writing me random messages about that particular poem. I'm glad it resonates with people. I was in the South, so the barbecue imagery probably came more readily. So I have 2 more poems for you guys. One is a meditation. So I just spent time at the beginning of this encouraging everyone to use words and use words well. I also know that the Lord has made some of us to be the silent type. And this is an acknowledgement of the possible excellencies of the silent type. And then the last one I'll read is actually a tongue twister challenge and song of war. So I saved that one for last. The last time I read it publicly, I did manage to go through without stumbling once. We'll see if I can pull it off again. Anyway, this is not the tongue twister. This is called Silent Joseph, or Rude Maker. The taciturn carpenter, bearded and diligent to rise, but given silently to the shaving of planks, or fitting quiet joints to appropriate size. Thus might Joseph be imagined, who is given no lines to speak in Christmas's tale, but I have an unreliable authority that his laugh barked as loud as hammer on nail. An artisan wholly skilled and prominent, seen as a man of garrulous joys, good to women and kind to children, making for Jesus' friends their scrapwood toys. In Nazareth, city of the branch, lived he who crafted the rod of Jesse, turning the wheel, modeling for his son the manhood of men, which he knew to be messy. Joseph it was who loudly showed Jesus how to pick up what had been laid down, how the rude rod and nail that pierces can build ships and worlds and towns. All right. And now we arrive at word hoard. Did I neglect this too long again? Nope. It's called word hoard, H-O-R-D-E. The idea is that you have an army of words at your disposal. Word hoard, H-O-A-R-D, as in a treasury of words, is the name of my upcoming works with Roman roads. So word hoard, or Via Dolorosa. It'll become apparent very quickly why this is a bit of a tongue twister. At Pentecost a dove dove down. From war storm a sword bestowed on those who would work the words of war. Roar forth, O Lord, your powerful word. Show forth, O Lord, your dolorous sword. Roar forth your sword. Show forth your word. Go forth, O host of God, boast your hoard of words, O word hoard. Go ordered forth, you warriors robed in flow, your chords fount poems, your founts sprout pose. Host of God, your words the powers plunder. Our words are swords, cord woven, hallowed for power, worthy of war. Stones clove, towers toppled, strongholds thrown down. Go forth, O host of God, upon the dolorous road. Follow where it roam. Work the woven warp of the world, your wonder words. Hope for glow of home, post road. The flow you rode soared toward glory. In the house of the Lord, your repose a reward. Show your God your notched and bloody sword. Joyful boast in your Lord. The floods forded, walls unworked, towns took. Look, Lord, look, we rode the road, we worked the war. Our words were swords, our hearts founted poems, our founts spouted prose. Locutus sum, his mouth is a sword. We warred as our Lord, our hope and our doom. O horde of God, hard your road, long your war. When soul is flown, study war no more. The house of hosts holds soldiers to one work. A song was sung, a word was spoke. Thank you. Well, I'm grateful for everyone's presence here. I still have a bit of a cigar to finish, so I hope everyone won't dash right out. But yeah, grateful that you guys are all here, and I hope it was a blessing to you.
Thank you.